The true happiness is not a destination, but an internal journey. Imagine a man surrounded by wealth, yet still imprisoned by anxiety. This is a reality for many, but not for the Stoics. They teach us that the mind is the true battlefield. What would happiness be if we didn't cultivate it in our thoughts? Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus left us powerful lessons about the freedom to be masters of our emotions. Have you ever stopped to consider that while seeking external validation, you might be distancing yourself from true peace? Each day is a new opportunity to train your mind, to make conscious choices. Pain and chaos can be transformed into strength and clarity. Stoicism isn't about denying feelings, it's about being free from them. Instead of getting lost in the storms of life, why not embrace each challenge as an opportunity for growth? Every difficulty can be a gateway to a stronger version of yourself. And remember, it's not what happens that hurts us, but how we interpret each situation. True freedom begins when we look inward and decide what really matters. The nature of happiness. Happiness is a theme we all seek, but often we lose our way, thinking it's tied to external factors like wealth, fame, or romantic relationships. However, true happiness doesn't depend on what we have or how we are perceived by others. It's more connected to our inner selves and, importantly, to controlling our thoughts. When we can direct our minds toward what truly matters, joy becomes a constant presence in our lives. What we need to understand is that happiness is a choice. Too often we let external factors influence our emotional state. For example, a cloudy day might make us feel sad, but if we learn to see beauty in every moment, regardless of circumstances, our perception shifts. Controlling our thoughts gives us the freedom to choose how we react to situations, which is essential for achieving genuine happiness. Moreover, happiness is not a permanent state, but rather a series of moments we can cultivate. Instead of focusing on what we lack, we can train our minds to recognize and appreciate what we already have. Practicing gratitude, for instance, is an effective way to strengthen our capacity for happiness. Happiness is a daily exercise that invites us to look inward and question our beliefs. Another important point is that happiness should not be confused with the absence of problems. In fact, facing challenges can be a source of learning and growth. When we can maintain a clear, focused mind even in the face of difficulties, we find space for happiness. Thus, the true nature of happiness is an internal journey, not a relentless pursuit of external factors. Finally, true happiness is rooted in acceptance. Accepting who we are, our limitations, and the situations in life gives us a sense of peace. This acceptance does not mean resignation, but rather the ability to understand that happiness is a state of mind we can cultivate every day, regardless of what happens around us. Stoicism and the mind. Stoicism is a philosophy that teaches us that the mind is the starting point for our happiness and inner peace. For the Stoics, the way we interpret life events is essential to our well-being. They believed that even in difficult situations, we always have the power to choose how to respond. Therefore, the first step toward finding happiness is understanding and mastering our own mind. The mind is like a garden. If we don't take care of it, weeds can take over. This means we need to be attentive to our thoughts and emotions. When we allow negative thoughts to dominate our day, our perception of reality distorts. Stoicism encourages us to cultivate a healthy mind where reason prevails over uncontrolled emotions. This practice not only brings us peace, but also allows us to make wiser decisions. The Stoics also emphasize the importance of mental discipline. This control over the mind is not something we achieve overnight. It is a continuous work of self-knowledge and reflection. We must be willing to question our beliefs and detach from others' opinions. In doing so, we build a strong and resilient mind, capable of facing life's adversities with courage and serenity. Additionally, Stoic practice helps us find a sense of purpose. When we master our thoughts, we can direct our actions toward what truly matters. This brings us a feeling of fulfillment and satisfaction that is much deeper than the momentary pleasures life can offer. The mind is our greatest ally in this journey toward happiness. Lastly, Stoicism reminds us that inner peace is accessible to everyone. We don't need perfect external conditions to achieve it. With practice and dedication, we can cultivate a tranquil mind, regardless of what happens around us. This is the essence of Stoic philosophy. True freedom lies in the ability to govern ourselves, rather than in external circumstances. Marcus Aurelius as a reference. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest representatives of Stoicism, left a legacy of wisdom that still resonates today. His meditations are a compilation of personal reflections that invite us to look within ourselves. He teaches us that to find peace and happiness, it is essential to have a clear understanding of who we are and what we truly value in life. The meditations are essentially an internal dialogue of Marcus Aurelius with himself. In them, he reflects on human nature, life's challenges, and the importance of virtue. His teachings are accessible and practical, offering valuable insights that we can apply in our daily lives. The simplicity and depth of his words encourage us to seek a life of integrity and purpose. One of the most powerful lessons we can extract from Marcus Aurelius is the importance of self-evaluation. He invites us to examine our actions and thoughts daily, questioning whether we are living in accordance with our values. This practice of reflection helps us stay focused on what truly matters and avoid distractions that can lead us away from the path of happiness. Moreover, Marcus Aurelius reminds us that life is fleeting. In his meditations, he reflects on the transience of existence and the inevitability of death. This perspective helps us appreciate each moment and act with urgency. When we recognize that time is limited, we are motivated to live more consciously and seek true happiness, which is rooted in meaningful actions. Ultimately, the legacy of Marcus Aurelius invites us to practice Stoicism. He teaches us that true wisdom is not just knowing Stoic principles, but applying them in our lives. By following his example and adopting his reflections, we can become more balanced and happy individuals, finding strength and serenity even in the most challenging situations. The importance of internal control. Internal control is a central concept in Stoic philosophy and essential for achieving emotional freedom. Mastering our thoughts and emotions is the key that allows us to face life with confidence and clarity. When we achieve this control, we free ourselves from the influence of external factors and become the authors of our own story. One of the most challenging aspects of internal control is our natural tendency to react impulsively. Often we are driven by momentary emotions, which can lead us to hasty decisions. Stoic practice teaches us to pause and reflect before acting. This pause allows us to assess the situation more clearly and choose the best response rather than simply reacting. Another important point is the differentiation between what is within our control and what is not. Frequently, we spend time and energy worrying about things we cannot change. Stoicism invites us to focus only on what we can influence, such as our attitudes and reactions. This shift in perspective is liberating and helps us find peace amid chaos. Additionally, internal control provides us with a sense of freedom. When we master our thoughts and emotions, we are no longer at the mercy of external circumstances. This autonomy allows us to live more authentically and in alignment with our values. True freedom is not the absence of challenges, but the ability to choose how to face them. Finally, cultivating internal control is a daily exercise. It is not about achieving a perfect state, but rather about constantly striving to be better. Each small step in this direction brings us closer to inner peace and genuine happiness. Thus, internal control becomes not only a philosophical practice, but a vital skill for a fulfilling life. Distinction between control and illusion. The distinction between what we can control and what is beyond our reach is one of the pillars of Stoic thought. Often, we allow ourselves to be misled by illusions, believing that we can influence everything around us. However, the reality is that there are many factors that simply lie outside our control. Recognizing this is fundamental to achieving inner peace. When we focus on things we cannot change, we end up wasting unnecessary energy. This frustration can lead us into a cycle of anxiety and stress, which only distances us from happiness. Stoicism teaches us to redirect our attention to what we can truly control: our reactions, our thoughts, and our choices. This change of focus is liberating. Understanding this distinction helps us accept reality as it is. Accepting that we cannot control the behavior of others, for example, frees us from unrealistic expectations. This does not mean we should be passive in the face of situations, but rather that we should act consciously and in alignment with our values, without being swayed by frustration over what we cannot change. Moreover, by understanding what is an illusion, we begin to cultivate a healthier mindset. This allows us to live more authentically and with fewer unnecessary worries. When we concentrate on what truly matters, we find space for happiness and peace. This mental clarity helps us make wiser decisions aligned with our purpose. Finally, the practice of distinguishing between control and illusion is an ongoing exercise. Life is full of uncertainties, and it is normal to feel the pursuit of approval. Many people spend their lives seeking the approval of others. They worry about what others think and strive to please, often at the expense of their own happiness. This incessant quest for recognition can become a trap. When you dedicate yourself solely to gaining external validation, you often forget to value what truly matters, your inner essence. When someone focuses on external approval, they may lose sight of their own needs and desires. This can create a sense of emptiness, as the satisfaction derived from outside is temporary and often illusory. It is essential to learn to accept and value yourself for who you are, rather than relying on others' opinions. True happiness arises when you feel good about yourself, regardless of what others think. Additionally, the pursuit of approval can affect the decisions we make in life. Often, we end up making choices that do not reflect our true passions or values, merely to be accepted or praised. This lack of authenticity can lead to regrets and frustrations over time. It is important to remember that the most valuable approval comes from within. Building a solid self-esteem is an essential pathway to freeing yourself from the need for external validation. When you recognize yourself as a valuable person, you become less dependent on others' validation. This does not mean you should completely ignore others' opinions, but rather learn to discern which ones are truly important to you. Ultimately, by letting go of the pursuit of approval, you create space to connect genuinely with others. Authentic relationships are built on honesty and mutual acceptance. When you value yourself, you attract people who also appreciate your authenticity, forging deeper and more meaningful connections. Authentic connections. Building genuine relationships is a fundamental part of life. Often, our interactions are superficial, based on appearances or momentary interests. However, it is in authentic connections that we find the true meaning of human relationships. These connections go beyond what is visible. They involve empathy, understanding, and a genuine interest in one another. When we allow ourselves to be authentic in our relationships, we create a safe space for others to feel comfortable being who they truly are. This results in a richer exchange, where each person can share their experiences, challenges, and joys. The value of having people around us who accept us without masks is invaluable and contributes to a profound sense of belonging. Moreover, authentic connections have the power to transform us. They teach us about ourselves and help us grow. When we are surrounded by supportive and inspiring people, we find the courage to be more vulnerable and, therefore, face challenges with greater resilience. These relationships encourage us to become the best version of ourselves. It's important to remember that the quality of relationships is more significant than the quantity. Having a small circle of true friends is far more fulfilling than having many superficial acquaintances. Thus, it is essential to nurture these connections by investing time and energy in people who genuinely matter. Ultimately, authentic connections bring a sense of purpose and joy to our lives. They remind us that we are not alone in our struggles, and that we can always rely on someone by our side. Life is much richer when we share moments, laughter, and even tears with people who truly care. Transformation. Through adversity, life often presents us with challenges and difficulties. However, these experiences, no matter how painful, can become opportunities for growth and transformation. Adversity forces us to look inward, question our beliefs, and find new ways to handle situations. It is often in pain that we find the clarity necessary for change. When we confront rejection or failure, we have the chance to reevaluate our goals and priorities. These tough moments can teach us valuable lessons about resilience, empathy, and self-awareness. Instead of allowing ourselves to be defeated, we can choose to use these experiences as fuel to become stronger and wiser. Moreover, the ability to transform pain into growth can help us develop a more positive mindset. Instead of viewing adversity as an obstacle, we can see it as a learning opportunity. This shift in perspective allows us to face challenges with more courage and determination, knowing that each difficulty carries a lesson to be learned. Adversity also has the power to connect us with others. When we share our struggles, we find support and understanding from people who have gone through similar experiences. This not only strengthens our bonds but also reminds us that we are not alone in our battles. Ultimately, transforming adversity into growth is a sign of emotional maturity. By learning to navigate the ups and downs of life, we become better prepared to face future challenges. This ability to adapt is a vital skill that helps us navigate life's uncertainties with confidence. If you've made it this far, you've already taken a significant step toward a stronger, wiser mindset. Stoicism is not just about understanding, but about living more consciously. Comment "learning from the wise" to let me know you're on this journey. Now, back to the lesson. Action and courage. Courage is an essential quality for facing the difficulties of life. Often we encounter situations that challenge us and make us hesitate. However, acting with courage, even in the face of fear, is crucial to achieving our goals and living a fulfilling life. Action is the first step toward the change and transformation we desire. When we decide to act, even when the outcome is uncertain, we demonstrate an inner strength that can be inspiring. Every small action we take, no matter how minor, brings us closer to our goals and dreams. It's important to remember that courage does not mean the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. Additionally, the courage to act can open doors and create unexpected opportunities. Often we become paralyzed by doubt or uncertainty, but by taking the first step, we begin to see possibilities that were previously invisible. Each action gives us a chance to learn and grow, regardless of the outcome. On the flip side, a lack of action can lead to stagnation and regret. When we let fear dominate us, we risk missing out on valuable experiences and growth opportunities. Therefore, it is essential to cultivate the courage to act, even if it means stepping out of our comfort zones. Ultimately, courageous actions teach us about ourselves. By facing challenges and taking risks, we discover strengths we didn't know we had. This self-discovery is one of the greatest benefits of acting with courage and can motivate us to continue moving forward in life, confident in our ability to overcome obstacles. The Stoic freedom. According to Stoic principles, true freedom is not about controlling the world around us, but about governing ourselves. This idea may seem simple, but it is profoundly transformative. When we realize that we cannot control everything, but we can control our reactions and attitudes, we begin to experience true freedom. Stoic freedom invites us to look inward and take responsibility for our emotions and thoughts. Instead of being at the mercy of external circumstances, we can choose how to respond to them. This gives us a sense of empowerment, as we understand that we have more control over our lives than we might think. Moreover, this freedom is an invitation to practice acceptance. By accepting what is beyond our control, we can free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. This does not mean we should be passive or resigned. Rather, we should focus on what we can truly change, ourselves and our reactions. Stoic freedom also teaches us to cultivate virtue as a path to true happiness. When we act with integrity, honesty, and fairness, we find an internal freedom that does not depend on external circumstances. This virtue becomes an anchor in times of uncertainty and turmoil. In conclusion, understanding Stoic freedom is an important step toward living a fuller life. By governing ourselves, we find inner peace and clarity, even in the face of challenges. This freedom is a conscious choice that allows us to live according to our values, regardless of the storms that may arise around us. The need for change is a constant in life, and often it begins from within. It's easy to wait for external conditions to be perfect before taking action, but this can be a trap. To transform, one must first be willing to look inward and acknowledge that true change starts in the mind. The moment you decide you want to change, it's as if a door opens. Everything else can follow. This idea that transformation should be internal is liberating. We don't need to wait for the world to change or for circumstances to be ideal. Instead, we can take the initiative by adjusting our thoughts and attitudes. This does not mean ignoring what is around us, but rather understanding that our response to it is what truly matters. When we decide to change the way we think, we begin to shape our reality. At times, the resistance to change can be strong. There is comfort in routines and familiar ways of living. However, this resistance can become a barrier that prevents our growth. Facing change positively allows us to see new opportunities. Instead of fearing the unknown, we can embrace it as a chance to learn and evolve. Furthermore, change does not need to be drastic or immediate. Small steps can lead to significant transformations. Every choice we make, every thought we choose to nurture, can be a step toward our true selves. Change is a continuous process, and each day is a new opportunity to rewrite our story. Ultimately, accepting that change is inevitable helps us live more fully. Rather than fighting against it, we can learn to flow with the tides of life. In doing so, we discover that change is not an enemy, but an ally that propels us toward what we truly desire. Cultivating the mind. Cultivating the mind is like tending to a garden. If we neglect it, weeds can take over, choking the flowers. Therefore, the first step is to be aware of what we are feeding our thoughts. This requires discipline and clarity. We need to choose what we want to cultivate, avoiding negative and limiting thoughts that lead us nowhere. Practicing meditation, for example, is an excellent way to start cultivating the mind. When we take time to connect with our thoughts, we can notice patterns that were previously hidden. Over time, this practice helps develop a more focused and tranquil mind. The mental clarity that comes from this practice allows us to make better decisions and live more intentionally. Additionally, reading and continuous learning are fundamental for nurturing our minds. Exposing ourselves to new ideas and perspectives broadens our horizons and helps us question deeply held beliefs. This not only enriches our knowledge, but also makes us more open to change and new experiences. A curious mind is a healthy mind. Discipline is another essential part of mental cultivation. Establishing a routine that includes moments of reflection and learning can make all the difference. This does not mean we have to be rigid, but rather that we should be consistent. The important thing is to find a balance that works for us, allowing our minds to flourish without feeling overwhelmed. Finally, cultivating the mind is a long-term commitment. It is a continuous process that requires attention and care. By taking care of our thoughts and emotions, we create a mental space where we can thrive, face challenges, and, above all, live a more meaningful life. Rejection of victimhood. It is easy to fall into a victim mentality, especially when things do not go as planned. However, this perspective can trap us in a cycle of helplessness. Seeing ourselves as victims of circumstances makes us lose control over our lives. It is essential to change this narrative and see ourselves as authors of our own story. When we adopt the perspective that we are the protagonists of our lives, we gain power. We can make decisions, take actions, and above all, take responsibility for our choices. This shift in mindset allows us to face difficulties more assertively, turning challenges into opportunities for learning and growth. Moreover, this rejection of victimization helps us develop resilience. By realizing that we have the ability to change our situation, we become stronger in the face of adversity. This does not mean ignoring difficulties, but rather approaching them with the firm conviction that we can overcome them. An important aspect of this change is self-awareness. By getting to know ourselves better, we can identify the thought patterns that keep us stuck in a victim mentality. This process of reflection allows us to understand our emotions and reactions, helping us cultivate a more empowered view of ourselves. Ultimately, by rejecting the victim position, we embrace a life of action. We start looking to the future with hope and determination, ready to write the next chapter of our story. This is true freedom, knowing that we are responsible for our destiny and that we can always start anew. The fleeting nature of the exterior. Living in a world where external things are often valued can lead us to forget what truly matters. The exterior, such as appearance, possessions, or status, is transient. Recognizing this is crucial for a more meaningful life. When we understand that all material things are ephemeral, we can focus on what truly holds value, our character and our actions. The superficiality of external things is often illusory. Social media, for instance, creates an environment where appearance may seem more important than authenticity. This pursuit of external validation can divert us from what really matters. When we cling to internal values, such as integrity and compassion, we find a more solid foundation for our happiness. Moreover, by reflecting on the fleeting nature of the external, we develop a sense of gratitude for what we truly have. Instead of worrying about what we lack, we can appreciate the small things surrounding us. This shift in focus helps us cultivate a more positive and content spirit. An important aspect of this reflection is the awareness that character is enduring. While external things can change rapidly, the essence of who we are remains. This allows us to build deeper, more meaningful relationships as we connect with the true essence of people rather than just their outward appearances. Ultimately, by valuing what is internal and lasting, we find a way to peace. This peace comes from accepting that, although the external world may be fickle, our true wealth lies in who we are and how we choose to act. This understanding is liberating and allows us to live a more authentic and fulfilling life. Humility and wisdom. Humility is often seen as a forgotten virtue, but it is the foundation for true wisdom. When we are humble, we acknowledge that there is always more to learn. This openness allows us to listen to others and embrace new ideas. In a world where opinions are often presented arrogantly, humility stands out as a rare and valuable quality. Wisdom, in turn, is not simply about accumulating knowledge, but knowing how to apply it effectively. Humility helps us discern when it's appropriate to act and when it's better to listen. By cultivating this wisdom, we become more capable of facing the complexities of life. This combination of humility and wisdom makes us more empathetic, as we are able to place ourselves in others' shoes. Moreover, humility allows us to recognize our flaws and limitations. By accepting that we are not perfect, we can learn from our mistakes. This mindset encourages us to grow and evolve, rather than clinging to an image of invulnerability. True strength comes from knowing that we can fail and still rise again. Wisdom is also about balancing our achievements with humility. We don't need to boast about our successes for them to be valid. When we celebrate our victories modestly, we connect more deeply with others and inspire those around us to do the same. Ultimately, humility and wisdom go hand in hand, forming the foundation of authentic and meaningful relationships. By nurturing them, we not only enrich our own lives, but also create an environment where people feel valued and respected. This is the true essence of a life well lived. The legacy of Stoic philosophers. The teachings of Stoic philosophers like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius remain relevant today. They offer us valuable tools for dealing with the challenges of modern life. Their lessons on emotional control, acceptance, and the pursuit of virtue have much to teach us. It's as if they are telling us that true power lies in how we respond to circumstances, not in the circumstances themselves. These thinkers remind us of the importance of focusing on what we can control. In a world full of uncertainties, this message serves as a solid foundation. By directing our attention to our actions and thoughts, we find liberation. Seneca, for example, teaches us, and so as you reflect on everything we've learned today, it's time to look within and ask yourself a crucial question. How have you been using your mind? Every thought is a seed that you plant. What kind of harvest do you wish to reap? Remember, Stoicism teaches us that true freedom begins within us. You may not control the world around you, but you can choose how to respond to it. Now think, what can you change in your life right now? What habits can you cultivate to become the best version of yourself? Change doesn't have to be monumental, but it should be steadfast. Every small step counts. If you felt moved by these words, please like and share this video. Your action can help others awaken to this transformative philosophy. Let's spread this message together, because Stoic wisdom is a light that can guide many through dark times. Thank you for watching until the end. Take care of your mind, your spirit, and above all, the incredible person you are becoming. Stay well, and see you next time. True strength lies within you.